All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Give me a touch on the top showdown plays for this Monday night showdown between the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears. And so, as always, I like to start out with a game preview. We can see it is a 3-point spread, and it's also a game that is projected to be pretty high scoring at 43.5. So this should be a fun game in terms of primetime football. It seems like all the primetime games we've had lately have not been as fun. Looking at the injury report, we do know that D'Onta Foreman is going to be out. That's the biggest piece of injury news. What is that going to mean for Roschon Johnson? What is that going to mean for also Khalil Herbert? What I'm expecting and kind of what the snap counts would show is that Johnson's probably going to get maybe 30 to 40% of the snaps, and then Herbert should get basically 55 to 60, maybe even 70% of the snap. And that's how I'm going to go about operating this. And if you just watch the film, you've seen that like Foreman is a better version of Roschon Johnson. They like using him though, Roschon Johnson. So interesting there. And then looking at the Vikings, we know that Jefferson's still out. That's like the biggest piece of injury news. And I do want to call it the snaps for TJ Hawkinson have been a little bit lower the last 2 weeks. They've been getting him off the field really when they can. The issue is that they really can't get him off the field too much. That's just because he's kind of been banged up the last. So we go ahead and take a peek at, let's start with Chicago. Actually, I think that's a little bit more fun to break down. So looking at it, Justin Fields really had his best game as a pro, I thought, last week against Detroit. And it might not show like stat wise, and this is kind of why reading the box score can be a little bit misleading. I would mention my guy Jordan Love is also a good reason as to why. Teasing guys. But all in all, we've had a pretty good week thus far. Thursday night was very good. Sunday was very good as well. Hopefully you guys are able to take advantage of that. Hoping that we can have a good Monday night football as well. Looking at Justin Fields, though, getting back to it, like box score wise, like the passing data might not show, but if you were watching it, you were pretty like encouraged by that. And I don't know if you're a Bears fan, I don't know if you're like excited about that performance or like, oh man, because it's going to make your decision this offseason more difficult because they seemingly have that number one pick locked in. And so really before this performance last week, it was pretty simple. Like you would be trading Justin Fields, you'd be moving off of him. But if he continues to perform like this, he's a franchise quarterback. So we'll see. This is going to be a very interesting game. We know that the Vikings are going to try to blitz a lot. And I'm actually wondering how that will hurt him or help him rushing the football. We saw him have a lot of design runs last week against Detroit, 18 rushing attempts. I think about half of those were like designed rush plays or like an RPO or whatnot. I would say with how much they're going to blitz, Minnesota's going to blitz, I would say a little bit more of those are just going to be him feeling the pressure from the outside and trying to explode up the middle. So I don't think we're going to get 18. We might even get double-digit rushing attempts, but we might get more yards, not 100 yards, but we might get closer to like 47 or something like that, maybe 50. So he's definitely a play I think I want to be going out of my way to play. And like, again, for what's worth, guys, like that game against Washington, I think anyone watching that would say the big game that he had there was a little bit fluky with Washington really selling out to try to pick off the football on two DJ Moore plays that end up being massive plays. All in all, those are plays that typically wouldn't happen. Whereas like last week, no, he was making those plays. Nothing about what he did last week was fluky. They were tight windows. He was fitting them in there. Looked really good. And so it is a very high price tag, but I do think we need to be going out of our way to roster him. He is essentially giving us a high floor with his rushing. Then from there, it really is wide open. I don't know exactly what we want to do. We look at something like DJ Moore. Do we want to get there? Potentially. You know, he had a really good game last week with Justin Fields. And again, like partially what made Fields impressive was a touchdown pass to DJ Moore. It was a tight window, great throw, great timing. And that was another big thing. Like his timing was a little bit better, at least passing the ball. There were some times where it seemed like he held onto the RPOs a little bit too long, but who really cares? It worked. I do feel like DJ Moore is a little bit too priced up. I don't know if we want to be going in too much on the pass catchers for the Bears. I think we maybe are trying to go with one of them. Looking at Khalil Herbert, I do think he's going to get a lion's share of the work in this one. You know, maybe I'm assuming like 60 to 70% of the work. Just assuming that he's going to be 1 week more healthy, and obviously they're going to be without D'Onta Foreman. I think he has a good chance to get around 20 opportunities in this game. And so if that happens, if he's getting work in the pass game like I think he's going to, then I see him gaining at least like 12 fantasy points. And if that happens at this price tag, he is simply too cheap. So I do want to be trying to target him, but it's weird. Like it doesn't make us feel good being on Herbert and being on Fields. That doesn't really correlate too well. From there, like Cole Kmet could certainly have a big game. We have seen him have big games with Justin Fields at quarterback. And this is like the epitome of the George Kittle rule, guys, where I feel like if we're playing Cole Kmet tonight, we are playing him in the captain spot. We are hoping for that massive upside game that he has shown. And we see that in his game log. It's either scoring and heavily involved in the passing game in the game plan, or he's not. He's blocking them. And so that's kind of my concern, is that we did see a little less routes run by the tight end last week for the Bears. Then from there, Mooney just seems to be like a hit or miss option for some reason. Him and Fields just don't have the chemistry. St. Brown, I was hoping would be a little bit cheaper because I thought he would be kind of a sneaky good play. He's someone I could see getting about 50% of the snaps tonight. And if he does that, I do think he's going to be someone that's going to give us points, but he's not cheap enough to the point where I'd be saying he's a great value play. If he was $800, I'd be like, all right, we're putting him in there. We know he's going to give us some points. At this price tag, I don't feel the need to do that. And then for what it's worth, like Roschon Johnson, we're fine with this play. I mean, we should be. Probably going to get around 9 opportunities. Probably going to get a couple of receptions in the pass game, maybe 1. All in all, he's going to give us probably at least a minimum of 3 fantasy points. But at that price tag, maybe a little bit too high. I still think we're going to see Tyler Scott getting some manufactured touches. All in all, though, to me, it's really Herbert, Fields, and then also DJ Moore. For now, I'll put DJ Moore in there knowing that I'm probably going to pivot. Let's go and get into Minnesota. And so Minnesota is much more difficult, I'll say. You got Joshua Dobbs, who honestly, if we were playing Justin Fields, I think we almost got to be playing Joshua Dobbs, who both have just been rushing the football a lot, and a lot of their production has come from rushing the football. And all in all, at least Dobbs has better pass catchers, and at least Dobbs has an offense that is designed for him to actually throw the football a lot. So that's where I'm saying, like, I don't know if I can get to DJ Moore, because I think we want to be prioritizing the Vikings pass catchers because their production should be a little bit more predictable. It's just figuring out which players to get on. So I do want to be playing Joshua Dobbs. Then from there, it's, do we want to go Hawkinson, Addison, KJ Osborne, or even Powell? And I do want to start with Powell because he is simply too cheap. Okay, he's going to play about 60, maybe to 80% of the snaps. We had just seen that. We've seen a lot of 11 personnel. It's TJ Hawkinson, and then not too much of their backup tight end, and then we're just seeing Brandon Powell a little bit in the slot. And so as long as we continue to see him on the field that much, he's going to give us around 6 fantasy points in this game. And at this cheap price tag, I like that. And if it comes to the point where you're trying to fit in a bunch of studs, and he's someone that you end up on just playing in the captain spot, hoping that someone else doesn't exactly like kill the slate where all the production's pretty much meeting their price tags, this is one where he should exceed his price tag. So I do like him as a play. I am trying to go out of my way to roster him. TJ Hawkinson is someone that certainly should be in a smash spot. He had a pretty good game against Chicago in week 11. No touchdowns in that game. The yards weren't exactly there, but 6 receptions, 8 targets, pretty solid game there. And then from there, like Jordan Addison, he was due to have some regression. He had a weird stretch in there where he was just kind of dominant. And so it's no shock that he's kind of fallen off a little bit, but all in all, he is still being very productive, still getting a lot of targets. And I think we do prioritize Hawkinson as the top pass catcher, then Jordan Addison. But again, given the price tag, I actually like Powell a little bit more. And then also given the price tag, I might just want to be getting in on KJ Osborne. Now, the issue with KJ Osborne, he really hasn't been involved in the offense. And I don't know, watching it, it didn't seem to like be anything that he was necessarily doing wrong, or the plays just weren't going his way is kind of my conclusion. And again, that's where I think we want to fit TJ Hawkinson into our builds, because it did seem like he's really favoring TJ Hawkins. And then I do think it's worthwhile to talk about the running backs. So the Chicago Bears have given up like the 3rd most receptions to opposing running backs thus far this season. And so we're gotta figure out which running back is most likely to get some work in the passing game. We see Madison's targets have really been capped at like 3 on average this season. Now at the start of the year, 4, 6, 7. But Cam Akers was there. And now we're seeing Ty Chandler get a little bit more involved. And Ty Chandler is certainly too high priced, I would say. He's coming in off of 2 really good games, and I think everyone expects him to get more work in this game. I would too, but at the same time, he still only had 30% of the snaps, which is what we saw Cam Akers get, 30 to 40% of the snap. And so it does seem to be like Alexander Madison is still going to be the RB1 in that off, still going to be the running back that gets 60% of the snaps. And I'm not going to be someone that says that's a mistake. Madison is a very solid overall back. He's a 3-down back where he might not do everything elite, but he also doesn't do anything really poorly as well. Ty Chandler has shown burst. He's got those late season running back legs, if you will, where he has fresh legs. He's looked good. He's certainly at a too high price tag for me. Like if we're doing this, I'd rather go Powell, I think. I'd maybe even rather go Roschon Johnson. I'd rather go that route. And so he's kind of at a lost price tag for me. Heck, I'd almost rather go KJ Osborne as well. That could be wrong, don't get me wrong. But considering the pricing, I think I'd rather get to Madison instead of Ty Chandler, which I kind of loaded up on a decent amount of Ty Chandler late in best ball drafts. I wanted to have an explosion, so like I'm not being biased here at all. Just a concern. And so lineup path wise, it's definitely interesting here. And so if we're looking at the captain spot, I would have felt pretty good if I could get Cole Kmet in there. Once again, like the Cole Kmet rule or the George Kittle rule, I'd been fine implementing. That does feel a little bit too tight. And so the issue that I'm having on this slate is, who do we want to play in the captain? Dobbs, Fields. I'm going to go with Dobbs for now. He's a little bit cheaper. I think he has almost as much upside. And then we're not sacrificing too much. We can still get to St. Brown, which I'd be fine with in this regard. Do I love that? No. And so this is where doing something, albeit dumb, is maybe the way to go. And this is something that has continuously worked for us this whole season. Now, it's not going to be exactly getting Justin Watson in the captain spot like I recommended last Monday night. I believe it was Monday night, but it is kind of that exact same thought process where we know he's going to get work. He's not exactly too cheap. That's the issue. But at the same time, $3K for a guy that's probably playing 60% of the snaps, for a guy that we can probably lock in to get at least 6 points, that's appealing to me. The issue that I have here is I would love if we could get to Khalil Herbert. By putting in Cole Kmet, this does feel like more of a GPP play, but at the same time, we're probably getting the 2 top scorers and probably the 3rd and 4th highest scorers. Now, maybe you're worried about TJ Hawkinson's snaps, and then you can go a little bit more of a fair and balanced approach. I get that. That's fine. But all in all, I don't mind this build. And playing 2 tight ends, I would assume that this is a little bit unique, especially having Powell in the captain spot. Should be good enough. But guys, that's going to be all for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Please give a like and subscribe. I do appreciate all of you guys being here. Let's have a good slate on the slate. Thanks for watching. And as always, let's keep cashing.